Going on, Jerome's Minnesota Fighting Vikings made some big-time major moves this offseason, trimming up the salary cap, and, of course, Kwesi adofo-mensah, Rob Thug Life Brzezinski doing some fantastic things. And the Vikings, even though they're eating around 50-plus million dead on the cap due to a void year cap hits coming home to roost from Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport. The Vikings still have around $27 million in cap space, and they're free as a bird now. $64.7 million in cap space. That does not include rollover from this year, so the Vikings will have some money to play with. But there's always ways to find more cash, right? And even though the offseason free agency is a primary spot where you unload bad contracts, training camp and 53-man cutdowns, it's kind of important as well. So we have 7 potentially shocking Vikings cap casualty potential. I need to reword that. 7 shocking potential Minnesota Vikings cap casualties. Something like that. But of course, it's because... Actually, no. This is a solemn process, and there's some veterans that we like, and it happens, man. Now, you could say, well, who cares? All you're saving is a couple 100,000 or a couple million here or there. At the end of the day, it all does add up. And the Vikings, paying Justin Jefferson, going to pay Christian Darrisaw in the near future, like, it all matters, right? So even though some of these names are very difficult, you have to have that conversation. All right. So first up is going to be defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. Now, I hear what you're saying. Why would a team that has arguably one of the worst defensive interiors, not my words, the national media's words, why would they cut their best defensive lineman, right? Why would they do that? Well, Harrison Phillips is in the final year of his contract with the Vikings. He is 28. It would create $2.3 million dead, but would save $6.5 million. Now, that's not nothing. And he does have a $6.45 million base salary. Now, cuts aren't always the be-all, end-all, right? And it could be a spot, too. And this is sort of dirty pool, but all teams do this, and it's part of the business, where you get down, end of training camp, you get to 53-man cuts, and, if it's an older veteran player that has kids, their kids are in school, everything is set up for the season, and the team approaches the veteran and is like, hey, take a couple $1 million pay cut, or you get the cut, and you have to find a new team, and you have to uproot your life, and you have to do all that stuff. It's tough. Again, it is a little bit dirty pool, but every single team does this. Kwesi's done it. Rick Spielman's done it, and it's tough. It is tough, but it is a way. And again, you could say that it's chicken bleep. It's a little bit of nickel and dime, but it happens. And with Phillips, I could see this potentially happening, where they're like, okay, instead of your $6.45 million base, let's cut that down to 4, and we'll have a couple million in incentives that you can claw back if you do have a good season, right? So that is a leverage point there. And Phillips, I don't know if the Vikings will bring Phillips back, because he will be 29 next offseason, and even though the Vikings are pretty Spartan along the defensive line, Harrison Phillips, he's a great leader. He's good against the run. It doesn't bring a ton as a pass rusher. All right, so that could come into the equation here. Next up, number 2, quarterback Nick Mullins. So Mullins is 29. He is the quarterback that does have the most time on the rooster with Kevin O'Connell. Now, by moving on, so they can move on either by moving on, or a potential trade, or even cutting him with hopes of getting him onto the practice squad, which would, of course, lower his salary. But he would have $375,000 dead, and you would save just over $1.8 million. And the way that you would go about this, J.J. McCarthy would have to come in and just completely tear it up. Tear up preseason, training camp, etc., and that you're comfortable with him as quarterback 2 with Sam Darnold, or McCarthy wins the job outright. One of the two. And like I said, this definitely is the nickel and dime situation. Of course, the Vikings last year definitely saw the value of having a knowledgeable quarterback 2, 3, 4 on the rooster, and the Vikings offense was able to move with Mullins. Respect. The problem is sometimes Mullins gave the ball to the other team. So it is what it is. Next, fullback C.J. Ham. This one hurts. This one really hurts, man. And The Vikings have gotten away from using the fullback in the run game, although a rededication to the run game could bring C.J. Ham back a little bit more to running back formations, but he's a special teams captain. He's a great leader out there. He's very good for the culture and the vibe, but this could be a spot too. So he's got a $2.4 million base. This could be a leverage point where it's like, hey, let's take this thing down to the league minimum, a couple incentives here or there, or fortunately going to have to cut you. And this is the leverage too, where you have a local guy who's been entrenched with this team for years, almost going on a decade at this point. It's tough. Yeah, it's kind of tough. But I would love to keep C.J. Ham, but I think that he could be a potential guy that they leverage into a pay cut. Next, defensive end Jonathan Bullard. So Bullard has been great over the last couple seasons as a run-stopping defensive end, absorbing bodies out there as a 5-tech. But even though they re-signed him, they would save $1.5 million against the cap if he did move on, because his base salary has $0 guaranteed in it. Next is wide receiver Brandon Powell. Now he does have $625,000 guaranteed, and obviously he's a favorite of the coaching staff. But you could find a spot where things could get weird. Like maybe Jalen Naylor stays healthy and he secures that wide receiver 3 spot. Maybe Sherfield steps up. Maybe Jackson. Maybe Thayer Thomas. Maybe Jashawn Jones, the highly paid UDFA. Maybe Adam Thielen finds his way back. Who knows, man? But I think that Powell would stay in the mix. But is his roster spot necessarily guaranteed? I don't know. Next. Outside linebacker Patrick Jones. So this one's interesting. So Jones is in the final year of his rookie deal, the former Pitt Panther. He's only 26, but all that's left in his contract is the prorated $225,000 cap hit from his signing bonus. That's it. That's it. And the Vikings would save north of $1.3 million if they cut or traded him. And his contract does have $0 guaranteed left in it. So it could be a spot where, the rest of the edge room maybe just looks better. Maybe Gabriel Murphy and Andre Carr II, maybe Richter Porter look good to go, and they feel fine with either moving on from Jones or maybe waiving him with hopes to get him on the practice squad. Could be either one. Lastly, so tight end Johnny Munt. Now, Munt's a bit like Powell, going back to the Rams days. So obviously Wes Phillips, Kevin O'Connell trust him. He was solid last year, frankly. He would leave $750,000 dead, but the Vikings would save $1.25 million. $0 of his base salary is guaranteed. The $750,000 is from a signing bonus, and it would be a spot too where maybe Hawkinson is ahead of where they think, as well as maybe Robert Tonyan. Maybe, hey, Bobby steps up and really solidifies himself as a tight end too. Oliver's the blocking tight end. And then, maybe N'Keal Harry, Nick Muse, Trey Knox, fantastic sandwich maker. Maybe they step up and good to go. And like I said, 53-man rooster. A lot of names on there, and cutting these guys doesn't necessarily save a lot, not particularly, but it is nickel and dime. And if you do have a guy on his rookie deal, you offset on the 53, so you're not even saving like the full value of the cap hit, since you do have to replace him on the roster anyway. But it's something to look for. And every penny does matter, especially when you got premium contracts like Jefferson's, and eventually Darrisaw's flying out the door. And also you got to think eventually paying Ivan Pace Jr., maybe paying Cam Beasley coming on up, maybe taking care of J.J. McCarthy down the line. It's crazy to think about. Same thing with Diamond Dallas Turner, Jordan Addison, etc. So it all does matter at the end of the day, and I trust what Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, and Rob Brzezinski have done, and then we'll just go from there. But that's it. 7, shocking potential Vikings veteran training camp, 53-man roster cap hits. It's a little bit wordy. We'll have to shorten it up. But let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But until next time, Skull Production Value.